let's kick off and others will join. First of all, hello, everyone. Welcome, friends, clients, colleagues, old, new. Really excited to have you all here, and thank you so much for joining. We're about to dive into, as you know, how to lead like a CEO in 2021. And we're going to be talking about lots of different things. I've got lots packed in. I will keep an eye on time, just to respect your time, but primarily focused on, first of all, of course, the 3 secrets of CEO level leadership, and more importantly, practical ways that you can start to apply those today, right? So my aim and my promise today is to provide a huge amount of value, lots of ideas, lots of tips, lots of strategies, mindset shifts, but most importantly, things that you can literally take away and start to make shifts. I mean, tonight you could even try it on family in terms of leading them, but certainly throughout the rest of the year and into 2021. So whether or not you know me, you just stumbled across the masterclass today, someone referred you, you're a friend, you're a client, you're a colleague, thank you so much for being here because I know how valuable everyone's time is. The plan is to be here for about 75 minutes, which includes a Q&A at the end, as well as some exciting news. There's a bonus that I am sharing right at the end of this, so do stay for that. And if others are game and want to ask more questions, then I'm available as well. But I'm really, really excited to kind of share some tips and ideas. I think some people know me, some don't. So just as an introduction, my name is Yewande. I'm the founder and CEO of OTTEL Leadership Coaching Consulting. I'm a certified leadership coach as well as performance coach and a consultant. And prior to starting my business, I was a McKinsey consultant and a Morgan Stanley VP. And I say all of that to say that I'm really excited to break down a number of things that I've learned throughout my career, and specifically helping you all to realize your leadership potential in 2021, and specifically leading both junior and senior stakeholders in a way that you feel like you're working smarter, saving time, having greater impact, and just making sure that you're leading in the way that you want to, especially after such a crazy 2020. We're just a few minutes in, and we've got lots and lots to cover. So maybe going into more detail as to why it's important in terms of the topic of the day. So the topics, of course, how to lead like a CEO in 2021. And whether you are an ambitious corporate professional, a serial high achiever, an aspiring business owner, or founder and CEO, one thing I think we can all be assured of is that the business world is changing super fast, arguably faster than ever. So that often means a lot of stress, a lot of overwhelm, pressure, and I would also argue with greater opportunity than ever for those who really capitalize on it. And anyone who knows me knows that I fundamentally believe, this is partly why I do what I do, that every single person is a leader. I don't care whether you have the CEO badge, if you're a manager, someone who's just started out in work, or even my 7-year-old niece, although she knows that she's definitely a leader and a boss of everyone. But regardless, it's not about the label. It's not a question of whether you're a leader. You are a leader. The question is how well you lead. And as I said, 2020 has brought a lot of stress, a lot of uncertainty. And if anything, it's kind of made a lot of people feel like things are outside of their control. What it also means is that we've had a lot of time to reflect and to identify new opportunities that are coming up in the world, whether or not we realize that. What that means for 2021, and this is the key, is that in terms of how people lead, there are going to be different types of leaders, and it's really about being at choice as to the type of leader that you are and how you're leading. And there are 3 types of leaders that I've sort of identified through obviously the work that I do and research as well. Firstly, reactors. I think going into 2021, especially after the 2020 that we've had, there are going to be a group of people who are reactive to what's happening. The uncertainty, the stress, the feeling of being out of control. Many people are going to struggle with the shift, and that's not even taking into account the politics and what's going on, right? And it makes sense. There's a lot of stress and there's a lot that can feel outside of one's control. So feeling like you're kind of chasing what's going on is not an unnatural feeling. The second category are those who are responders. For those who work in very fast-paced environment, these are the people who love firefighting, right? It's those who will make the most of what comes up. There will be opportunities that come up and you will see them, you'll capitalize on it, and you'll find success, right? But to some extent, responders are still reacting to what's going on. They are not just working off of default, they are being conscious. However, it is still in response to what's going on. The third, and which is what I really want to talk about today, the third category are the creators. And this is where CEO level impact comes up. It's about creating what you want and not just recognizing opportunities that come up, but actually being the creators of those opportunities. And we're going to talk a little bit about how you can do that. So for context, I always like to start masterclasses by just making sure everyone's in the right place. So you are absolutely in the right place if, one, you believe that your leadership matters. Two, you want to step up in that leadership, and not just in terms of what you believe you are capable of, but really capitalizing on that and feeling like you are realizing that capability and potential. And you know that what you've been doing so far, while successful, is not the thing that's going to get you to the next step when you think about your leadership and the next level of success that you're trying to achieve. And so we're really going to hone into how you can lead like that creator style CEO with presence and confidence, specific activities and actions that you can do to accelerate that, right? Because everyone's busy. And I, even just looking around, I know that there are a lot of super ambitious high achievers in the audience. So accelerating closer to where you want to be as quickly as possible, and creating followers, which means that not only are you leading, but people are actually following you as a leader. And hopefully you guys are really excited to learn this and more. Just as a bit of housekeeping, my team is on hand if there's anything that you guys need. So I think you should have received a workbook prior to coming on. If you didn't get that, feel free to reach out to Flora. So if you're on Facebook Live, Flora's there to help. Here in Zoom, Charlotte is around as well. So if you have any questions or need any help with anything, they are on hand. And as I go through stuff, and maybe putting some stuff in the chat just to help you. Context. Again, so I believe that everyone's a leader, and there's so many different ways to slice and dice leadership. So it's important to kind of understand the context of my background in the way that I kind of look at things, right? So again, thinking about my background, I've been through both a crazy corporate career, very high pressured, both at Morgan Stanley and McKinsey, and obviously moved into becoming a leadership coach. What that means is that I've had the privilege of both firsthand experience of kind of that progression through leadership, both within the corporate world, as well as my career, my business that I'm running right now, and in leading high performing teams as well. The other thing, which I've been really privileged to do, is to watch CEOs and C-suite people and leaders in all walks of different industries firsthand, really understanding what, number one, leads them into achieving the success that they achieve. But then also, secondly, being able to communicate with them and work with them in a way that I'm able to lead them to what it is that they want, right? So whether it's working with like FTSE 100 or Fortune 500 CEOs and C-suites while at McKinsey and delivering solutions for them, it can be daunting, right? Being either the most junior person on the team or just with less experience of them. But there are things and strategies that we use in order to be able to do that in a really effective way. And then bring on top of that the training that I've developed both in leadership coaching as well as performance coaching. It's all of that that I kind of bring to you today in order to, in terms of the, I guess, the secrets and tips that I have in store. So culminating all of that, the theory, the practical, the trial and errors, there's a lot that often gets in our way of being that CEO level leader, right? Major concerns that come up, and do write this in the chat if it's something that resonates. Imposter syndrome is a big one when you think about how you step up in your leadership, right? Especially if you are a high achiever and you've succeeded very quickly, you may often be the youngest in the room or the most junior. So how can you show leadership in those situations? Second, there's often a lot of pressure and overwhelm. right? There's lots to do. There's more that you can do. There are deadlines that need to be achieved. There's a long to-do list. To-do lists are just, yeah, they come up time and time again, combined with lack of time. So how can you step up in your leadership when the time's really difficult? There's a lot of pressure and there's overwhelm. Expectations is also a big one. This is particularly an issue for people who find they are capable of doing a lot of things and therefore try to do a lot of things. It's not great for leadership, because the idea of leadership is, first of all, you are leading yourself in what you're doing, as opposed to just doing everything that you can do because you're capable. And then there are other things like feeling inauthentic potentially. So does that CEO level leadership mean being a certain type of leader that's not who you are? Does it mean being overly aggressive, or not being jokey, or bringing your personality in? It's the absolute opposite. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. And just not feeling like your voice is heard. These are all natural. I've experienced it. Many leaders have experienced it. I hear it time and time again with a lot of the senior leaders who I coach. And it's natural, yes, but it's not necessary. And today we're going to change that. So follow along again in the workbook if you've got that, because there are a couple of tips in there which we will go through. And in tackling these, again, we're here for about, because I see a few people have just joined, we're here for about 75 minutes, which includes a Q&A at the end. I'll be here for longer if people are game. And again, there's an exciting bonus at the end, which I'm excited to share with you guys. All right, we're getting closer to the 3 secrets. Before we talk about what you should do and prioritize, let's talk about what you should be deprioritizing when you are stepping up into that CEO level leadership. First of all, stop relinquishing your power and time to other people. Stay in your leadership. There's often, and I talked about this idea of being concerned about being the youngest or the most junior. And therefore, there might be just a natural tendency to go, well, there's not enough time, therefore I'm at the mercy of time. Or this other person's more senior or more experienced, therefore they get to lead. Actually, the only way to take leadership is to own that for yourself. So first thing, stop relinquishing your power and time to others and to things. Second, stop prioritizing tactical things. There is a lot to do. There will always be a lot to do. The to-do list is honestly, if I think about the number of times to-do lists come up in coaching sessions, even with the most senior leaders, it's crazy. I'm currently coaching a CEO at a hedge fund, and literally we're working through how does he shift his to-do list out of the way so that he can work on more strategic stuff. And it makes complete sense. What often gets us to where we are as high performing and high achieving employees or business leaders is the fact that we're great at fixing stuff. We're great at helping. We're great at problem solving. And it feels so good when you tick off a to-do list, but it's not helping you in your leadership unless you are at choice in terms of what you're doing. So just because you're capable of doing something doesn't mean you should be doing it. So stop prioritizing tactical things. And don't forget, you have a whole team behind you. But again, we'll come to that when we talk about what you should be doing. And the third is stop outsourcing your development. I recently interviewed the CEO of FT Strategies, and she said something which stuck with me and has stuck with me since. She said, no one cares about your career more than you do. So being focused on your development, and when I say your development, being specific about the type of development that you want, it's not just about gaining leadership skills, which is why it's great to have you guys on here. If you're trying to achieve CEO level leadership, then focus on that and prioritize that for yourself, right? And it makes sense because it's often the way that we're rewarded, right? Throughout the beginning of our careers, especially. The more that we do, the more people like us and we do better and we're great in terms of our appraisals. Those who are more senior naturally take over in meetings. So relinquishing that power makes sense, and ticking off boxes off of to-do lists just feels really, really good. But just because that's the way that we've been trained and that's the way that we've been rewarded in the past, doesn't mean, first of all, that that's how we will continue to be rewarded in the future, especially if there's a specific level of leadership that you want to get to. All right. And when you stop doing all of this, not only does it create space for the strategies that we're going to talk about now, but things get so much easier. The pressure and the overwhelm relinquishes, right? The strategies that I'm about to share become much simpler because that overwhelm isn't there. And leadership becomes effortless and more impactful because now you're focused on the value adding things and not the defaults. So if you're not doing what others are saying, if you're not trying to squeeze in every last minute of work, if you're not ticking off to-dos, what are you doing? In a simple sentence, you are leading. You're doing the value-added work that enables you to create more impact, to lead junior and senior stakeholders, to create followers, right? So now you're not pulling people along, they're actually following you because they're inspired, and to do it all confidently and authentically. So the 3 secrets of CEO level leadership to accelerate you: 1, energy; 2, clarity; 3, action. And we're going to go through each of those one at a time. Let's start with energy. Why is that important? So take a couple of minutes just to think about a really impactful leader, someone who inspires you. Doesn't matter if you know them directly, if they're just like, I don't know, on TV, it could be Beyonce, doesn't really matter. But someone who inspires you, and when you see them, you don't even care what they're doing. You literally want to follow them and be a part of whatever it is that they're doing. What is it about them? It's often related to the way that they show up. Some people talk about presence. Sometimes you can't even describe it. Sometimes you can't even necessarily remember what it was that they said, but there is something about who they are that gives you confidence in them and just makes you want to be a part of whatever it is that they are creating, right? And we sometimes talk about it coming from a strong leadership mindset, which is true. What I'd love to introduce is this concept of 7 levels of energy leadership, which talks about this energy in a more tangible way, which is often difficult, right? So often when people go, have a leadership mindset, have a growth mindset, it can be very intangible, right? What does that mean? Confidence? Maybe, maybe not. But then how do you actually get there? So there's a simple framework, which I'll go through, and I'll go through all 7 levels now. But before I do, for context, there's sort of 2 categories of energy. One, there's what we call catabolic energy. And second, there's what we call anabolic energy. And I will say this, and I say this often, although everyone forgets, and I forget sometimes, no energy level is bad, but there are some that are more constructive. And I see Kathleen laughing because she knows. There's no bad energy level, genuinely. They all serve a purpose. The question is whether you're doing it by default, which is often the way that we naturally go through life, or you are choosing it, or you're doing it by choice, which then moves you into leadership. Catabolic energy generally is more destructive, especially if you try to sustain it for a long period of time. Anabolic energy is more constructive. When you think about that leader that inspires you and excites you and you want to follow, they're often coming from a highly anabolic energy level. So we'll go through the 7 levels very quickly now, but as always, there's only so much. So I'd probably talk about this for like 2 hours, but I'm going to do a shorter version. And of course, I can share more for anyone who's more interested. So feel free to email. So starting at the bottom, level 1 energy is really the opposite of, anabolic leadership. It comes from a place of powerlessness. So if you say things or you hear things like, there's not enough time, my boss has the final decision, I don't have a choice in that, I just have to do it, there's nothing that I can do. That's very level 1 energy, because the idea is that it is outside of your control. And when we come from that frame of mind, creating, if you remember kind of the three types of leaders that I mentioned earlier, so reactors, responders, and creators, it's very much in the reaction mode, if at all reaction, because in that point, there's no, you don't have choice, or you perceive that you don't have choice. So being a leader in that situation becomes a lot more difficult. Second level of energy, level 2, is one that comes from a place of conflict. So if you, for those of my London folks, if you've been on the London Underground, obviously pre-COVID, in the morning where people are trying to get on and everyone's angry, there's a lot of level 2 catabolic energy there. That's where you assume that there's conflict. What that might sound like is, well, if I don't do well in this, someone else is going to take my job. I have to be better than everyone else. There's a right and there's a wrong. In this negotiation, either I'm going to get what I want or they're going to get what they want, right? It comes from a place of conflict, and therefore everything that you do is to win and to get the other person to lose. You may know some leaders who come from that space, and a lot of it's by force. Level 3 energy is all about coping and resolution. So this is where you sort of push down the powerlessness and the anger and the frustration, and you come more from a place of, okay, I just need to get things done. I'm going to put my plan in place. And while I'm not super excited about it, I'm going to just do what needs to be done so that we can move forward. A lot of leaders and a lot of people who work in the corporate space come from this energy because it gets you through, but it doesn't necessarily help you to excel, right? I see a question. What were the two types again? So catabolic and anabolic. Level 1 and 2 are catabolic, and those are the lower levels of energy. And then 3 and above, we start going to anabolic levels of energy. And so level 3 sort of suppresses 1 and 2. It doesn't address them, but it means you can kind of move on. Level 4 is a level of service. And this is where the focus is on service to other people. So what that might sound like is, I really, really want to help my client. I really want to help my team. And so my focus is on doing what I want to do in service of them. So if you've ever heard of a servant leader, they often come from this energy level, and it's more anabolic. So in this case, you're moving less from sort of judgment of I lose or you lose, and more into a space of service, of being helpful. And even as I say that, it just feels like a much lighter energy, right? Because now you're more connected to what it is that you want to do and hopefully helping other people. All right, moving up. Level 5 is about opportunity and really learning and growth. So in level 5, the focus is not on one person winning or the other, but you're really focused on the win-win opportunity. What that might sound like is, hey, why don't we do this? Because it'd be great for you because you'll get to achieve X, Y, and Z. And for me, it means that I'd have the opportunity to do whatever, right? So now you're finding a win-win. And if we compare this to level 2, where if you were going into negotiation, for example, and I know that some people may be going in for comp or bonus discussions soon, if you haven't already, level 2 may come from a perspective of, oh, this firm doesn't care about me and they're probably going to like screw me on my bonus. Either they're going to get what they want or I get what I want. And I'm probably not going to be happy with it anyway. Whereas level 4 is there's an opportunity here, right? What's the win-win? There's a way that they can get what they want and I get what I want, and actually it's mutually beneficial. For example, if I feel like I'm being valued, I'm more motivated, and it means I can give back to them. And it's a different perspective and mindset to come towards. And when you go in with that perspective, it shows significantly more leadership than just going in with like anger and conflict. Moving up, we got 2 more. Level 6 goes beyond win-win for each person. It's now about everybody wins, right? This is the level of even less judgment, and the focus is on purpose and connection. So if I were going into a negotiation, for example, I'm not even thinking about the separation between us. With level 5, it's like you're you, I'm me, I'm finding a win-win between the 2 of us. Level 6, we are connected, we are one, and we are going to win. And so now when you're thinking about how you get through that conversation potentially, you're thinking more about everyone winning. And so creativity, intuition, purpose becomes so much more accessible. And it means that often we're able to find answers and solutions that we couldn't even find before. Level 7 is one of my favorite levels because nothing exists at level 7. There's no winning, there's no losing. The way I like to imagine it is it's basically like a Buddhist monk on a mountain just meditating. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. So what does that actually mean as we go through? And that was kind of the shorter version. How does that actually apply to your leadership? First of all, hopefully you've seen that just as I described it, the higher you get into the energy levels, the more access you have to creativity, to intuition, to just seeing more solutions that you can tap into. And it means that you can lead people from a place of purpose and connection, more so than a place of one person wins or loses, right? Imagine if you've ever been in a meeting with a leader and you feel like all they want is to get something out of you and they don't care about you. How likely are you to actually feel led by them and to want to follow them? Probably not. Now imagine situations where you've been with someone who truly listened to you, regardless of their title, regardless of your title, and you felt really, really connected to them. How much did you feel like you wanted to lead them? Completely different, right? And maybe just to give you a tangible example, I work with a director at a large firm, and she was looking. She's great, right? She drives her team. She delivers. They do awesome things, right? And in terms of delivery, she always knew that she had the backing of both her team as well as more senior leaders because she was respected in that. The issue was that her feedback wasn't as great. There was a sense that she didn't always listen to other people. It was very much coming from a level 2 perspective, not level 2 in the sense of like anger, but more like force and drive and push. And so we talked about the different energy levels, and she ended up going, actually, she really likes level 5 and level 6 in the combination. So we talked about, what does that mean? It means, giving others the opportunity, for example, to bring their ideas forward, which is level 5. Level 6, connecting with them more and just spending 30 minutes understanding what they're trying to achieve and how she could be helpful, which was then level 4. And just by understanding the different approaches she could take and how that aligned with what she was trying to achieve, it completely transformed the way that she worked with her team. And what that meant was not only was she actually getting more results off of her team because they were more motivated, she was leading them into a new sort of energy where they also weren't working off of force, but more off of connection. And it meant that they could, and she also got better feedback going forward. So it's ultimately win-win, and it just felt more fulfilling and more satisfying. All right. So that's energy. As I said, I could talk about that for like 2 hours or 3 hours, but we're not going to do that. We're going to go to the second secret, which I kind of just gave you a hint of, which is clarity. Why is clarity important? Focusing on your goals only and ticking them off is not enough. We often just go, all right, what's my goal for the day, for the week, for the month? We write it down. We assume we're going to tick it off at some point, and then we forget about it. And it becomes so much harder to achieve until we then address it a quarter later or 6 months later or a year later, right? So if anyone's done like a 360 at work, how often do you go back and read it and you're like, I don't remember writing that, or where did I go with that? It's important to not just set goals, but to really get clear and to get absolute clarity on what it is you're trying to achieve. Because the goals alone, with that, often we lack fulfillment when we get there because we didn't actually know what success looked like. So it was like we were walking around in the dark trying to figure out what success is and hoping that we stumble upon it. And there's often a lack of motivation because if you aren't super clear about what you're trying to achieve for yourself and for others, the motivation to get there becomes so much harder. So there are 2 parts of clarity to always think about distinctly. One is vision, and the second is purpose. The way I like to distinguish this is vision is exactly what it says, right? It's what you see, right? It's what does success look like? The difference between vision and goal is a goal might be, I want to be CEO of my company in 5 years. That's a goal, right? And maybe you get there, maybe you don't. Vision is getting really clear about what does that actually look like? being CEO of my company looks different if I am CEO of a company I work for now versus CEO of my own company. It looks different in terms of how you want to achieve that. So, do I want to be a CEO who has a team of 10 around me? Do I want to be the type of CEO who works every single day of the week versus 3 times a week? Do I want to be a CEO in London versus in New York versus in Lagos, which is where I am, by the way? There are so many different ways to actually achieve that. And if you're not clear about what success looks like, it inevitably becomes a lot harder. And so when I often find that leaders or high achievers achieve success, but are not fulfilled or satisfied, it's because they didn't have that vision of what actual success looks like and why that's important to them. Which brings us to the second part of clarity, which is purpose. And that's all about why it's important, right? We can all have visions of success. I know lots of people, friends, families, I would even put myself in that category prior to, at certain parts of my career, where if you were to look at my CV, I could tick off success in lots of different places. However, when we feel unsatisfied by what that success, where we get to in terms of success, it's often because we didn't fully plan it, because we didn't know what it looked like, the vision, or it actually wasn't as important to us as we thought, or we didn't think about the importance of it. And I always culminate this into a North Star, which goes, well, when you have vision and you have purpose, it's like a North Star that you're connected to, and everything becomes so much easier. All right. Again, an example of this, I work with a consultant who to be fair, she's actually an ex-consultant. She left consulting to start her own business. And she'd been thinking of doing that for years and years and years, but found it really difficult to figure out how to make the right decisions for herself. So we worked a lot on, actually for her, it was more about purpose and understanding her why. And she came to me one day after we worked on it. She was like, I've got my purpose statement, right? For some people, it's like a picture. For some people, it's a statement. For some people, it's a word. It actually doesn't really matter what it is, but it has to connect with you. And she read it out loud, and she was so connected to it that it was just like silence. Usually there'd be a question of, do you think that was right? Does that sound right? And she just went, that is me. And so I went, all right, what does that mean in terms of what you want to do with your job? She was like, I'm quitting my job and I'm starting my business. Just like that. And of course, there was a process that we went through, but by understanding her purpose and then us working on the vision as well, it meant that decision-making became a lot easier. And now when she achieves success, she knows that it's the type of success that she wants. Okay. Finally, action. And this is the third secret, and not just any action, but strategic action. It's about setting direction and bringing people along, right? It's interesting that this is the third one, because often when we think about leadership, we go straight into leading other people. But if we can't lead ourselves, especially in terms of our energy and our clarity, then how can we lead anyone else? The great thing with starting with energy and clarity is that once you start to master that, leading others becomes so much easier, because half of the work is done. You know how you want to show up and the energy and environment that you want to create. And you have the clarity to then bring people along, because now you can communicate it. Now you can get buy-in. Now teamwork becomes a lot easier because you know where you're going. And then it's about communicating it to others. In practice, and this is where I go into staying in your leadership, regardless of if someone's more junior or senior, what this means is being able to communicate. Obviously, the energy part, some of it will be more through thought, through feeling, as well as the way that you show up, but certainly around clarity. And I'll give you a simple example of what you could do in a meeting just to get really, really tangible, although it differs depending on, of course, the scenario. And if anyone has any specific scenarios, we can definitely go into that. So imagine that you are going to a meeting with a senior stakeholder, right? If you're a founder, it could be an investor. If you are in a corporate environment, it might be your boss or your boss's boss, it doesn't really matter. Or if you're a consultant, it could be a client as well, right? So much more senior client, investor, colleague, and you want to achieve something, right? First thing, of course, focus on your energy and figure out where you are in your energy. Are you coming from a place of powerlessness, conflict, etc.? How do you want to show up? Make a decision about that. Get clarity about what you're trying to achieve. And then when you get in, and even I would argue before you get in, lead the meeting by being clear about what it is you want to achieve. So a simple formula that I often share with my clients is, one, start with what's the goal you're trying to achieve, right? Goals are still important. I want to discuss numbers for next year, right? So what my salary and bonus is, for example. Talk about the outcome, right? What does success look like? And hopefully if you've done Secret 2, which is clarity, you already know what success is for you. And what success might be is success, or you don't have to say success, right? You can say by the end of the meeting, what would be really great is, one, me being able to communicate where I would like my package to be. Two, getting your thoughts as to where that is. And three, us aligning ideally on a number that we're both happy with and that works for both of us. If we can't align on that, then what I'd love to do is get next steps in so that we can get to a path where we're both in agreement, right? So you're setting up the meeting and you're going, here's my goal. Here's what success looks like. There's no question. And here's what next steps are. And getting buy-in, is really important because we want to bring people along. And that could be something as simple as, how does that sound? Is there anything else you would like to add to the meeting? Not, did you want to discuss something else? Because then that you basically hand back your power to someone else. So you go, forget everything I said. You get to decide. Instead, you want to say, is there anything else you want to add? And now you're staying in your leadership, right? And again, it's about energy, clarity, and then strategic action, making sure that you are then bringing people along. And what this does is it sets expectations for others. Giving you a really tangible example of this. So I worked with another consultant, I think a life consultant, who he was in a position where he was finding that he was just doing a lot of work, not just his work, but his team's work. And this kind of came down to the fact that he felt like his team were too junior because there were a number of new people on his team to really understand the process. And in terms of his expectations, they weren't delivering what it was that he wanted, right? So he basically wasn't leading his team in the way that he wanted to do. One, we realized that from an energetic perspective, so his energy, his perspective was, my team are not capable. And with that perspective, you're basically taking away their power and you're putting all of that stress onto yourself. So we shifted that a little bit into more of like a win-win, and what's the learning opportunity for them and what are we trying to achieve. Second, it was clear that in terms of his clarity for what he wanted to achieve, that also wasn't clear, because he was like, well, I just want them to do their work so I don't have to do their work. Yeah, but what does that actually mean? And we talked about the fact that what he was aiming for was a situation where he was providing them with guidance, they were clear about expectations, and they were then delivering those expectations back. And once we got clear about that, then we could talk about the actions, because then he was like, oh, that's easy. Now I just need to explain those expectations to them and act based on those expectations. So one, he explained the expectations to them. Second, what he did was he now acted off the back of those expectations. So whenever his team came back with something that he didn't agree with, or it didn't quite hit the mark, he would then ask them a question that got them closer to the mark. So instead of getting back results and then him figuring out what those results meant, he would just say, okay, those are interesting results. What does that mean and what should we do next? And just that simple change, the feedback that he then sent to me, and it was literally an email, and I'm reading the words here. He said, I followed our strategy in the session and guess what? Saw immediate improvements. All of a sudden, I can lay back and enjoy the outcome of my team. So not only is he now leading his team towards what he wants, he's leading them in the way he wants, and it's stress-free, right? Now he's not doing the work, they're doing the work, and no doubt it's a win-win because they're also learning and they're developing themselves. All right. So I know that was a lot. So quick recap. So we know challenges of 2020, that's all been amplified, lots of stressors, increased uncertainty, pressure, overwhelm, challenges, etc. But it's also brought a lot of opportunities because hopefully just in that short sort of overview, especially of energy, there are opportunities for people to really step up in their leadership and not in an artificial way, but really authentically based on the way that you want to lead. And the world is looking for leaders. I'm not going to get political, but no doubt you'll see just out there, just because you have a label doesn't mean that you lead, right? And you may have no label, right? I see Regina with her little boy, little girl. I can't see it. It's a little picture. It's like thumbs up. But yeah, the world is looking for leaders. So if you want to step up, there is a way to do so. And it doesn't mean barging in and taking over a meeting, but we can all do it authentically and step up in a way that we're creating the impact that we want. And so instead of being reactors or responders, it's about being creators and creating what you want, because that is what leadership is about. So stop relinquishing power, prioritize and stop prioritizing tactical, stop outsourcing development. Instead start doing more of what impactful CEOs do, leading confidently in a way that others are inspired and motivated to follow. Because once you but address and are a choice as to your energy, developing that strong mindset, being conscious of the way that you're showing up and the way that you want to show up. Once you do that, once you get clarity, especially on your vision and your purpose, right? What success looks like, why it's meaningful for you, and you're truly being drawn towards that. And then you take that into strategic action. And that's not to say that we don't do any tactical things, but again, it's by choice, but also prioritizing strategy, not just tactical, in sharing your vision with others, in sharing your purpose and sharing your energy, getting buy-in, discussing next steps, then things just become so much easier. And the impact of that is that, one, not only are you successful, right? Because we can all tick that off. We can put up a post, we can put it on our CV, but now that success comes with fulfillment and satisfaction, which motivates you to do more and to find more success. It's no longer coming from a place of powerlessness, but a place of choice and passion. And now you're feeling more confident and authentic in that. Second impact, leadership becomes more effortless. So going back to my client, all of a sudden I can lay back and enjoy the outcome of my team. That's what you want. And I even say it's not about working smart. It's not about even working smarter. It's about leading smarter instead of working harder, and prioritizing impact, not just work, by being really, really connected to your North Star. And so now you're not only leading followers, but the distinction is that you're leading other leaders because they're following in your energy and also being empowered to actually take decision, take action, and develop themselves. All right. So the how. While we're on in the chat or in Facebook Live, wherever, which of these things are you most excited to take action on right away? You can put it in the chat, you can put it in the worksheet, you can put it in your notes. I really don't care, but there is something about writing down what you want to do for accountability for yourself and starting to make those shifts. And if you're really serious about it, one of the biggest pieces of advice that I always give is, I remember when I was going through, I think it was at Morgan Stanley, and I had a great piece of advice, which was, when you get promoted, you don't wait for the promotion to then start to do the things, right? You start to act like what you want before you get there, because then you stepped into it. So let's start doing CEO level activities now. If you're really serious, what I would ask you all to do is commit to blocking out space in your calendars, at least 1 hour this week, because it's not a waste of time. Your value, yes, there is value in doing the stuff and ticking off things on the list. And I know it feels really good, but your value is in that time that you spend working, developing yourself, and also thinking strategically about that vision, because you can't create without figuring out what you want to create. And when you think about that inspirational leader, rarely, and I know sometimes it seems effortless, like people just walk in and they can just do whatever. But often what actually happens is that they have prioritized their CEO level time to create that space in order to figure out all of this stuff. So when they show up in front of you, it becomes so much more effortless. And it seems like they just strolled in and they just did whatever. So commit to at least 1 hour this week. I know it's Wednesday, we've got Thursday and Friday, so hopefully you have some time. And I would even say block out time weekly. If you do nothing else, it means that you've got that space, and prioritize that like you would prioritize a super important meeting with a client, like you would prioritize something really important with a friend or a family member, because that time is important, right? Invest your energy and time. All right. Just checking for any questions on that. How can one be themselves? So a question from Eric, how can one be themselves and at the same time avoid some of the things that they are capable of? I'm not sure I fully understand that question, Eric, so maybe just send that through again. But if I understand, if it's coming from a place of authenticity, then there are ways to tackle that. What I would say is that we often assume that showing up as leaders, we will be inauthentic, because the vision we have of leadership is one that may be the ones that are surround us. So as a leader, part of your role is to create that type of leadership so that you are now changing the environment, because leaders don't follow. It doesn't mean that you don't work in teams, but you don't follow by default and assume that that is the way things are. Instead, it's creating the vision of what is leadership for me? Who am I as a leader, right? We go back to energy and clarity, the vision and the purpose. Why is that important to me? And going through those steps in order to create that image in your mind, and then it becomes much easier to step into it. And it's an iterative process. So every single thing that I say, as I said, I walk the talk. I've got to coach myself. I do this development work on myself. It's not about doing it once. It's about doing it over and over again and seeing that shift. All right. So every single one of us have, I'm just looking at the time, so good. Every single one of us have the power to start taking some action towards being like a CEO in 2021. And if you think, we've had 40 minutes or 50 minutes on here. Hopefully you guys already have a couple of things which have been impactful and have been useful, and you can kind of take and start to use. If you think you're ready and you're good, that's awesome. Thank you so much for joining. If you want to take that into the next level and you're wondering how we might be able to support you, then stay tuned, and then I'll share that bonus as well. Okay. In particular, again, I like to make sure that people are in the right place. So in particular, if you're ready to lead into that life that you want by upskilling your leadership skills, mindset, as well as performance, to accelerate to more success without the overwhelm, without extra work, leading smarter, not working harder, and you want to learn how we can support you, then stay on. As I said, there's a bonus. And yes, Regina, there will be a recording and replay, so I'll send that through to everyone. All right, so what I often do is I like to work with many of my clients on these concepts, both long-term as well as kind of in obviously individual sessions. And as I said, I do kind of this work for myself. So for me, when I think about 2021, the energy that I'm focused on is on connection, right? The vision is on scale, particularly for my business, and then just in lots of other areas. And so what I've been really excited about is creating a program that enables me to help amazing people like yourselves, serial high achievers, as well as leaders, to lead your way and to accelerate to more success and impact without that overwhelm, without that burnout, without the pressure. So I am so excited. My team knows how excited I am because this is the first time I'm literally announcing it. I'm excited to announce our legacy level leadership program, which is a 9-month leadership accelerator for leaders and serial high achievers who in particular know that they are capable, and we know we are capable of doing so much more. and really are just looking to step into leadership to truly lead ourselves and others to success with greater impact, again, without that overwhelm. It's not about doing all the things. It's about being strategic about where we focus our efforts, our development, our minds, and other people in order to create, going back to being a creator, the life, both professional and personal, that we want. So legacy level leadership is a culmination of all of the firsthand experience that I have, as well as my team, both in the corporate world as well as a business owner, the coaching knowledge and experience and investment in my coaching as well, plus best practices from my private clients and the results that they get. And it's really for those who are truly looking to accelerate. There is a reason why we called it an accelerator, and to transform. And I would say I like big, audacious goals. And so for me, this is truly about like legacy level leadership. It's not about how do I lead in my next role, although it will help with that, or how do I lead if I'm a business leader, or how do I lead as a founder? It'll help with all of that. But it's really about getting serious about how am I making my mark in this world? And what does that mean in terms of how I'm leading myself and others, right? To stop working harder and just doing and doing and doing and start leading smarter. And we really look at a range of holistic things you've kind of seen today anyway, which is hard skills, soft skills. Mindset is fundamental to that, and it's always a starting point. And there's an awesome assessment that we do for every single person, which is super cool, in accelerating your leadership and realizing, oh, Sheila, I like that. Elevate my energy. Just notice I'm on level 3 and specs of 1 and 2. Great awareness and great insight, Sheila, because the recognition and the awareness means that now we can do something about it, right? And that's how the acceleration works, because we're no longer just at default and doing things because that's just the way that, you know, it is, or the way that we're used to it, but now we're a choice. And that's the start of leadership. And the idea is that it's sustainable. So it's not just about what we do now and trying to be like a quick fix to like the thing that you're doing now, although it will help with that. It's about that legacy and really leading the way that you want to, irrespective of what's going on. So the way that the program works is it's a 9-month program. We would meet 3 to 4 times monthly with various things within that, and developing in 5 core pillars of legacy level leadership, some of which may sound familiar based on what we've done so far. So self-leadership, thought leadership, people leadership, leadership mindsets, and leadership performance. And in between, obviously, there'll be sort of master classes like this. It'll be in a much smaller group. So not only would there be a master class, but there would be workshops, so implementation workshops where we are actually working on specific things coming up across any of those areas and more as they come up. And everyone would also get a really awesome leadership mindset diagnostic, because as you can see from my approach, it all starts with our mindset and the energy that we show up with. It can feel really, really intangible, trying to think, how do I shift my mindset or shift my energy in the moment? And the assessment that we work through and is the start and the catalyst of everything that we do is really the starting point. And therefore the assessment allows you to clearly see what your mindset looks like on a normal basis versus what it looks like under stress, right? And then we can start to address what's at the core, which makes it sustainable. So in order to join the January cohorts, you can go right now to otitoleadership.com. So that's OTITO leadership.com, all one word. And for the next 5 days, you'll have the opportunity to join for January. So the cart closes on Monday, 1 p.m. EST and 6 p.m. GMT. And I mentioned there was a bonus. And on the link, Charlotte as well as Flora will be putting those in the chat. So hopefully you guys can see that for those who want to join. The bonus for anyone who joins in the next 24 hours, so before tomorrow, Thursday. Tomorrow is Thursday, yes. Before Thursday, 1 Eastern, 6 GMT. There will be a bonus workshop next week where we will start to work on your North Star clarity. It's a North Star Clarity workshop where we will map out what you're trying to achieve in 2021, which means that you start stronger and faster, right? Everyone within the program will obviously get a chance to work on that, but for a smaller group who do join before the end of the day tomorrow, It just means that we can work on that before the Christmas break. And then there's a little bit of peace of mind that you've got a plan into 2021. There's a question that came up around the different areas. Yes. So in terms of leadership, mindset, as well as performance, the distinction between that is mindset is a little bit more holistic. So we've talked about the energy levels, and it's about, okay, how am I leading myself generally? On a general good day, what does my energy look like? Do I generally come from a place of powerlessness? Do I generally come from a place of service? Do I generally come from a place of opportunity? And it sort of leads your life on a whole, and that's both on a normal day as well as under stress. Performance is about what actually happens in the moment. So while you may generally come from a place of opportunity, in the moment, and it may be in high stress moments, the way that we act there's so many factors that come in. And so from a performance perspective, it's about how do we not just, have that overarching fulfillment, but how do we perform in every single moment without being distracted by what's just happened 5 minutes before and and being fearful. And I know someone commented on fear, or being fearful of what happened. And it's about really honing in terms of your energy and how you want to lead in every single moment. All right. And what that means is that you're then able to realize that full potential and capabilities. Life becomes less overwhelming. There's less pressure, especially in the moment, and you're just able to achieve impact. So why now? Again, as I mentioned, 2021 is going to be a game changer. Many of you are already reflecting on that and seeing that. And knowledge without action is futile. And so what I will say is, regardless of whether or not, and I hope that, I'm excited to work with some of you within the program, regardless of whether or not you do join the program, it's important to take action, because as I'm saying that there's still a full house on, which is great. Knowledge, the information's great, but if we're not taking that into action, if we're not investing in ourselves, whether especially in terms of time, then it just means that nothing really goes anywhere. The benefits, again, we'll get ahead of the game. January, I know resolutions come through. It's important to focus on not just the resolutions, but actually getting a plan together. And question in terms of the actual website, it's bothleadership.com. The investment, another question that came through is so the investment, it's £715 pounds, British pounds per month, with an initial deposit of 1,500 to get on the program. Or there's a 10% discount if you pay in full. And again, for everyone who joins either live now or over the next 24 hours, you get the North Star Clarity Workshop, which means that you can sort of go into the Christmas break clear about what you want to achieve next year, or really have a head start onto that, which means that when we start in January, it's just full steam ahead. Question, what's the best style of leadership to use when trying to break through in the steps of CEO level? That's a great question, Emeka. What I will say is there is no best style. The best style comes in a couple of formats. One, the best style, first of all, is what is most authentic to you. We cannot be effective leaders when we're trying to be someone else. And there's sometimes, and it depends on, obviously I'm answering your question without us discussing the details. And depending on how close you are to your authentic style, will determine how successful you are, because we can try to be someone else for a certain amount of time, but if we're not being authentic in ourselves, it becomes so much harder. We're often coming from a level 2 perspective, and therefore it's just less impactful and less effective, or we just burn out and we just can't do it anymore. The second answer to your question is, while there's no good or bad energy level, level 1 and level 2 are rarely sustainable, and often are more destructive than the higher levels of energy. So it's often, what I would say is that there is some experimentation depending on what resonates with you, as well as, and now we're moving into performance, getting feedback off the back of what the other party is doing. And so I'll give you an example. I've got a client who is extremely level 6. So she comes often from a place of creativity, intuition, She hates looking at numbers, which is fair enough. But she connects more with like her gut. And while that's great as a leader, if she's now working with someone who, and she's a founder, right? She's a founder of a company. If she's now speaking to an investor and she's trying to break into the next level in terms of like the caliber of investors that she's working with, if she's working with an investor who's level 2, coming from a level 6, like, oh, it's all good, we like intuitively I feel like this is right, becomes a lot harder because there's just too big a gap. And so the work that we've done there is really helping her to perform in the moment, to recognize other people's energy levels, and then to go, all right, if someone's at level 2, I need to then help them come up by coming down to either level 3 or level 4. So when you talk about the best level of leadership to use when trying to break through in the steps to CEO level leadership, I would say 1, that's authentic to your style. 2, that does come from a higher anabolic level of energy. So less force, because while that can help, it often isn't sustainable and it's just tiring for yourself and for other people. And 1 that recognizes the other person and how they're coming up. Let me know if that helps or if you have any follow-up questions. And so yes, I'm trying to think questions. Yeah, so for the legacy level leadership, much of the benefit, as I said, comes from not just taking some of those hard skills around how do I actually lead people? How do I lead a more junior member? How do I lead a more senior member? How do I stay in my leadership when I'm feeling nervous or I'm feeling unsure? And so that's why we really focus on the combination of self-leadership, which is how do I lead myself first? Because again, if I don't know where I'm going, I cannot lead someone else. Second, thought leadership. So how do I take all those thoughts and ideas and put them in a package and communicate them in a way that is effective and where I am solving problems for other people, and not just solving problems, but creating solutions and creating ideas that will resonate with others, as well as people leadership. Now, how do I lead people, right? Junior, senior, people under stress, people who are already bought in, and do it in a way where I'm actually creating, because again, it's all about creating the type of leaders that I want who are following me. So now I'm not just leading followers, but I'm actually leading and developing leaders, all right, on top of mindset as well as performance. In terms of questions as well, and thanks, I think Charlotte just put it up there. For those who are interested in legacy level leadership, but have questions, and maybe you're not, either your questions aren't being fed through, because I know there are a couple of questions coming through, or you want some more focused time. I've opened up a number of slots tomorrow, so 10-minute Q&As tomorrow for private questions, so we can go through any questions that you have. Charlotte and Flora will share it. I think Charlotte did already in the chat, and hopefully Flora is doing so in the Facebook Live as well. And there will also be a group Q&A session tomorrow at the same time as this. It'll be a shorter session just to go through any questions for anyone who is keen to join the program, but still have a few questions. Details again, it's a nine-month program, and it's really about shifting the possibility of what is possible for yourself, where you know that you are more than capable of achieving the leadership that you want. You're welcome, Tolu. Thanks so much. Achieving the leadership that you want in a way that you want, right? It's all about want, and it's not about being selfish, but it's knowing that you are at your best when you're truly realizing your potential, okay? And taking the opportunity to take the ownership that you want in order to lead others achieve what you want to achieve. So again, it's otitoleadership.com. And if you join in the next 24 hours, then it means that we will, yeah, thanks for putting that up, Charlotte. I know the websites can get lost in the chat as well. If you join in the next 24 hours, then we will be doing a North Star Clarity Workshop with me next week, where we will not just talk about North Star and what you want to achieve, but actually go through where you are and create a plan together. Questions? Yes. So yes, self-leadership is all about creating your North Star, focusing on your superpowers, understanding what you want, not what you need, and then working through creating that. And in terms of thought leadership, that's more about how you tell your story, how you create solutions, and how you start to think and act strategically. with people leadership being about leading, building your A team, communication, and then development. And the results ultimately mean that you are making more effective decisions that you are happy with, have more confidence, have more focus, have a lot more engagement, and are just more in control of leading yourself and others to the success that you want. And that's irrespective of whether you are a consultant who's looking for your purpose in order to develop a new business, a founder who's trying to make strategic decisions, especially under so much pressure, or someone who's trying to step up in their leadership to move into a C-suite level, right? And doing so under that pressure, recognizing that what you've been doing so far only gets you so much of the way, but doesn't actually have that uptick to get you to where you want to go. And yes, again, that's a good question. In terms of the bonus, anyone who joins in the next 24 hours, yes, we'll have that session next week. And it'll just be a kickoff to the new year and just to give some peace of mind. And yes, for the actual program, it will be weekly sessions with me, and there'll be a combination of master classes where we're talking about very specific leadership skills, energy, activity, actions, as well as clarity. Forgot the last one. We'll be doing some coaching, so primarily group coaching, as well as, and there'll be a lot of accountability to make sure that you are moving through the process and actually seeing some results. And there will be a lot of practice. So while there will be a lot that happens outside, obviously taking these ideas and strategies into your leadership, there will be a lot of practice within the program. So the benefit of this will also be being surrounded by your peers who are doing similar things, right? So it'll be a safe space to try out that approach, right? So if you're looking to have a conversation and to step up into a C-suite position and you're not quite sure which approach to take, you can then have that conversation and we can test that out like I do with my current clients in a semi-role play to feel absolutely prepared and to test some of these concepts before going out. So if this is resonating, do join our January cohorts. I'm super excited about it. It's going to be lots of fun. I'm really excited about what I'm creating. Ooh, Tamina, I love that you're blocking off your 1 hour. Super important. You can tick off of your checklist that you've done that. So for those who are ready to take that step and to invest, go to otitoleadership.com. Again, the investment is, there's a deposit of £1,500 to secure your position and then, or your spot. And then it's $715 per month, or there's a 10% discount if you pay off in full. And there's of course the bonus for those who join in the next 24 hours. What's unique? It's an accelerator. We focus on short diagnostics, no throwing spaghetti at the wall, really focused approach, holistic solutions, and the benefit of the group. I love structure. Anyone who knows me knows I love structure. So there's a lot of structure and a lot of action. And it means that you get to benefit from all of the investment that I've had in myself, as well as my clients in my career through corporate, within consulting, within coaching, with my clients and business owners. So yeah, are there any other questions? I see a lot of people still on. And the questions might be going really, really quick, but if there are any questions, Charlotte, Flora, do shoot them through. I'd be happy to answer. If not, I guess just for the last time, if anyone's keen to join, really excited to have people into work with you all. It's otitoleadership.com. And I'm excited to work with you guys both starting in January, and then anyone who joins the Clarity Workshop next week. It's going to be super fun and energizing before the holidays. And as a reminder, I've got the Q&A tomorrow, so you can either book 10-minute Q&As with me, and there will be a link in there. You guys are so welcome. Thank you so much. So excited that you found it really insightful. I hope to see some of you in the program or having a chat tomorrow. And there will be a Q&A tomorrow at the same time, which will be a group Q&A. If there's nothing else, for those who I don't see before the new year, have an awesome, awesome, awesome holiday. Get lots of rest, have fun, celebrate your 2020 successes, because there have been a lot. Thank you so much. Thank you guys. And be sure to set yourself up for success. Knowledge without action is futile. So whether you're joining the legacy level leadership program or you're taking a different action, take the action. You've invested time today. I do not take that for granted, but ultimately it's an investment in yourself and in stepping up into leadership. So take the next step for yourself, block out the time, take action, and make the most of it. I can't wait to see what you all do in 2021. Shoot me a note. Yeah. Anything else? If not, thank you.